What's up? Welcome on in, everybody. It is that time, one of the biggest pods of the year. Oklahoma and Texas going to play a little football game this weekend, and we're here to break it all down. Who is we? It's the Sooners on SI crew. Of course, Ryan Chapman, posted up here in More America. Up in the 918, we've got our fearless leader, John Hoover. Boss, how are you?
Great, man. Ready to get back in the swing of things with this OU Texas game. What says it's going to be like 22 in a row for me? So, I'm fired up.
Yeah, we got new press box. So our man
Ooh,
Carson Field covering his first one is not well. You're going to be on the field, so you will get to experience the most democratic bathroom in the world, where basically Matthew McConaughey all the way down to the security workers all use the same thing. But you're not going to get to have the bolted down seat experience, Carson. We have new digs.
No, I will not, but I'm excited for this one. Heard the atmosphere is unreal. Really is nothing like it with it being equidistant from the campuses. It's a pretty remarkable game to be covering, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, Carson's first. Aber has been to plenty, just like the rest of us. We got some old grizzled vets here of the Red River shootout here on the Sooners Outside crew. Aber, where are you at mentally? It's Wednesday, noon. Season's not over yet, but he is wearing black right now. Is this a Cubs funeral, or we
Yeah,
don't want to talk about
yeah, it's hey, the hockey season started last night, and
it?
the Pens got a win, so we'll focus on that right now.
We turn the page. Aber didn't want to talk about the Cubs. Brent Venables doesn't want to talk about John Mateer. But gosh darn it, Brent, you have to. It is the big story of the week, whether you like it or not. Will Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer take the field against the Horns? We had a volley of questions for Brent Venables yesterday, aided by the breaking sourced report from Pete Nakos and all of his, or not Pete Nakos, Pete Thamel. Sorry, Pete Nakos. Pete Thamel breaking. John Mateer would like to play in the OU Texas game. John,
he's
did we
pushing.
need to source that?
He's
Did we need
pushing.
to source that?
I wonder who the source was. Hey, Pete, I got something for you. Mateer's pushing to play.
He would like to play in the biggest game of the year.
Yeah.
No, kidding aside, that's what a lot of this week is going to be. Just straight up, probably not going to know until Saturday. But Venables
And
fielded a bunch of those questions yesterday.
might not even know like before. It might have to wait until kickoff or the first series until Saturday. If remember the Venables Dylan Gabriel subterfuge in 22, he rolls him out there for pregame. He takes a bunch of snaps. He goes out and goes in the tunnel, then comes back out and he's in street clothes right for kickoffs. Like, okay, was that necessary? I get. It turned out it wasn't. You could have achieved the same thing by not even bringing Dylan to Dallas, but that was a weird time. This is going to be weird too. Whatever they decide. Mateer dressed out last week, right? Full uniform, stood on the sideline, has a little brace on his thumb. That'll be the baseline for for how weird Saturday's going to get. He's going to come out and he's going to do some stuff in pregame. We're not going to know, and then every binocular and every camera lens is going to be trained on him during warm-ups to see just how close he is to catching a football, holding a football, throwing a football.
I mean, he's going to throw in pregame. He is throwing he has thrown footballs, and he's going to throw in pregame. Now, is he going to play? I don't know, but like you said, who Brent Venables, this coaching staff, they went as far as making sure that Dylan Gabriel was pictured in practice in a video in the lead up to Oklahoma and Texas in 2022. If you thought it was going to be anything different, then you got another thing coming. Carson, Aber, and I were in Norman, though, yesterday. Carson, what did you make of? Part of it was, I think there was always going to be someone was going to have to ask the Mateer question, one or two questions as part of when you get to the press conference week. We know he's not going to say anything, but it's still the job just in case he does. The Thamel report, though, felt like it expedited, what does ramping up mean? There was some questions of trying to discern what is the holdup? Is it pain? Is it grip? All that stuff. And Brent Venables just flat out lied and said that he doesn't know anything about the injury, which great line, makes it easy, but that is a lie. Brent Venables knows what the injury is and he knows all about it.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Nagy's the CEO, but Brent Venables runs the team. He knows exactly what's going on, how likely he is to play, all of that stuff. but I understand from his perspective not wanting to share a whole lot just because of availability reports, how those work, not wanting to give Texas a competitive advantage of, oh, we're game planning for this guy for sure, just in case Mateer is unable to play. Or if Venables pretty much said, yeah, we think he's playing, that could have given Texas a little bit of something. But it's been about as vague as I expected it to be. It's really not a shocker, especially considering what they did with the Dylan Gabriel rollout a couple years ago. So I wouldn't say it's anything just too shocking yet. Maybe we see something out of the ordinary in tonight's availability report. Who knows? But we'll have to wait and see.
It would be stupid for Brent Venables to say anything. Like, let me just put this out there. Like, if the shoe was on the other foot, if Arch Manning, that shoulder stinger, if there was like in doubt, Aber, Steve Sarkisian talks to the media on like Mondays and then the Wednesday teleconference. I think he does one Thursday too. Sark should also not come out and say, "Oh yeah, Arch is 100% playing," or "Oh, he's not like that." That's part of what this week is. That's part of what this game is. I don't think anyone's expecting that. To tell us that it is 90 degrees outside and that is why you're practicing in the indoor was laughable. We've seen a lot of BS from that podium, and that was a lot of it.
Yeah, that was about the most absurd thing I've heard in a press conference, and there's been plenty of absurd things, but it was 90 and hotter for a good portion of the early part of the season. And while they do practice indoors on Tuesdays pretty regularly, Mondays not so much. And to roll out that load of let's see what I'm not
Malarkey.
sure
I think
what word.
malarkey is what we've been
Yeah,
using as a
that
nation.
that that word works. Was just sort of ridiculous. Like, even just flat out say, hey, we don't want people to get an eye on, but
Yeah.
we'll blame it on Mason Young and those folks for what happened a few years ago after, and that's completely tongue in cheek, by the way, for what happened with those folks a few years ago, watching from the journalism building as Caleb Williams took the snaps ahead of Spencer Rattler. And Brent Venables wasn't around then, but he certainly knows what that vantage point is from the journalism building.
Pretty spectacular stuff. But
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. Was maybe when we talked about it last week, who's going to take the snaps? They reminded them, oh crap, there's that window over there. We need to put up taller fences. Hey, let's move into the indoor.
Yeah, at least I will say this for Brent Venables. At least he'll go into the indoor instead of what Lincoln Riley would do, which is hire an incredible amount of security guards to patrol the area and run people off.
Yeah.
I keep saying this. I wish we had the FOIA numbers for the security guard costs under Lincoln Riley versus now with Brent Venables, because it's certainly gone down pretty significantly.
Yeah, I can see. I've been in that parking garage on practice days, because I have to hang out in Norman somewhere for basically 2 days, right? I've been in the practice garage and have somebody come and knock on my window and say, you need to move. Not really, not when this is a public parking. Lincoln's down there looking up going, I need 2 shooters up here on this vantage point. I need a third one over here. Dude, we're just sports writers. We're not here to break, major secrets, major national secrets.
But now that's a punishable offense, Hoof.
What's that?
Not to get too political, but reporting stuff that
reporting
people
stuff
don't want reported is
yeah.
Watch out, Pete Thamel. He's coming for you because John Mateer wants to play. None of that's going to matter if Oklahoma can't run the football, but is it Mateer? Is it Hawkins? That'll obviously matter a great deal. That's why there's so much intrigue here. Hoover, I know you didn't get to chip in with us here on the post-game pod, but not to rehash it, Michael Hawkins Jr. Was fine against Kent State. Ben Arbuckle talked about it on Tuesday. He said it a lot more polite than I would. He talked about, he needs to clean up some footwork. If Michael Hawkins Jr. is the guy and he has that happy feet, Oklahoma is going to lose to Texas because it's going to be a fired-up Texas football team. And Michael Hawkins Jr. is just going to airmail, overthrow, all that stuff. He's got to find a way, if it's Hawkins, to settle in, be decisive, and drive and deliver the football. Because as we know, John, there's a couple of constants in this game. Going to be momentum swings, all that stuff. The running game tells a lot, which we know. But the other thing, like it feels like with these two defenses that are both really good, it's going to be not just there's going to be a small amount of explosive plays available, and when the opportunity rises, you got to hit it. And we saw Michael Hawkins Jr. miss it with Keontez Lewis. If that were an actual defense, he would have missed it with the touchdown to Satania immediately after, and he was missing guys all day.
Yeah, so a quick recap of what I think part of the problem is when you look at 44 nothing against Kent State, not Kansas State. Kansas State might have been a better match for OU that day for sure.
Might have.
Might have. But Kent State, you beat them 44 nothing. Your offense gets what 37, right? So not hugely like you didn't cover. They say great teams cover, good teams win, great teams cover. Oh, you didn't cover, even with the defensive touchdown. Here's when you look back at that, Kent State's no good. 185 yards rushing, 170 yards passing. Super meh. Okay. Texas Tech, guys, 230 rushing, 371 passing. Florida State against Kent State, I'm talking about. Florida State, 498 rushing, 277 passing. They won 66-10. Texas Tech won 62-14. Buffalo. Okay, we're talking about the Buffalo Bulls here, not the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Bulls. They had 139 yards rushing. They also threw for 318. They only won by 3. My point is, Kent State did more defensively against Oklahoma. Oklahoma did less offensively against Kent State than you would have expected. What the heck? 355 yards total offense? That's not good. So, yeah, here's the problem. Kent State should never be a measuring stick for the Oklahoma offense, right? That was not a competitive game. Oklahoma's done some good things against Auburn. They did some good things against Michigan. They've done some other good things offensively. But yeah, with the new quarterback, first start of the season, he was off a little bit on some of his throws. He was doing really well. I think he hit 9 in a row or something like that. You know, they were checking down that he was doing. He was working a lot of short game. I think he hit 1 intermediate, maybe 2 intermediate throws in that stretch. He was fine, but then he started kind of getting a little wild and doing that sidearm thing. You could tell he was not quite comfortable. I don't know what it was with, but you know, he said there's a lot for him to build on. Michael Hawkins said that, so clearly he's as Brent said, he's got some real good self-awareness.
Yeah, it didn't help that. Carson, I don't know what to make of the offensive line. First off, they can't run the football. We know that. We'll dive into that here in a little bit, but that did nothing to me to make me believe that Oklahoma's suddenly going to go run for 200 yards or anything against Texas. But it's a group that had their 2 best pass pro days probably against the 2 best defenses they played in Michigan and Auburn, and then saved their worst pass pro day for the worst defense that they're going to play, which the raw numbers as far as number of times that Hawkins got hit and all that stuff is not like, oh my gosh, wow, until you factor in that is not a living, breathing football team. That's like an FCS level squad. They're awful. That Kent State team, like, surely Derek Simmons isn't going to have that kind of shocker at the Cotton Bowl, right? Right?
I mean, you can hope not. It's one of those things that you have to wonder, was the mentality all there playing against a team like Kent State? Like, I know we hear every availability, we treat every game the same, blah, blah, blah. Is that really true, though, against a team like Kent State, which OU knows that their scout team could beat by 20 points? Maybe not. Who knows? I obviously don't know. I don't know what is going on through their heads when they're playing a team like Kent State. But it is harder to get fired up. You don't have the crowd behind you as much. Obviously, still a home game, but a lot less into it than they were against Auburn, Michigan, than they will be in conference games later in the year. So I wouldn't worry too much. Derek Simmons, as you said, had a really rough game. That kind of seemed out of the ordinary from what we saw from him in his first few games with OU. I did feel like the run blocking was a little bit better. Take it with a grain of salt.
It's Kent State. Like, yeah, rats. Like,
right. Yeah, no, 100%. It's just not the same. Just the size, the skill, the athleticism, like all of that's not there. But they were able to at least move. If they couldn't move against Kent State, because I remember the Illinois State game. Granted, I think Illinois State being a good FCS team is probably better than the product that we saw from Kent State on Saturday. But OU couldn't run against Illinois State. At least they could run against Kent State. So at least small progress, but Texas, their front seven's typically very dang good.
ran a little bit. They couldn't force an explosive or pop an explosive play at Aber. No running back ran for a rush of 20 or more yards. I mean, you look at the good news is when we flip it around, I don't think Texas is going to be able to run the ball either. But if you head over to the website, OklahomaSooners.si.com, I kind of wrote about like what it takes typically in this game to win the rushing battle. If you look at it over the last 25 years, just a good round number. And frankly, I was tired of like going through box scores. They've played 26 times in the last 25 years, if you remember the Big 12 championship game. The team that wins the rushing battle is 23-1, and then 1 year they tied. The team that wins the rushing battle typically wins this game. Now, Aber, over the last 25 years, to win the rushing battle, the average yard per run or average yards per game for the winner of OU Texas is 205.5 yards. Are these teams going to combine for 205 yards on the ground on Saturday?
I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I think I'm going to take the under on that. I mean, you look at the rushing numbers. I mean, heck, Texas ran for 52 yards against Florida last week. They've had a couple of games where they popped 200, but haven't been very good on the ground. We know about OU struggles. And then you look at two of the best defenses in the country, and Texas, Florida is the only team that's run for more than 100 yards on them. The week before, they held Sam Houston to less than 30 yards rushing. We know about Oklahoma's success on the ground, or stopping the ground game on the other side. So I think I'll be surprised if either of these teams pop a big number on Saturday, but you've got to be able to run, at certain times in the game, whether it's to, shrink things time-wise or just to get big first downs. I think you'll see, both these quarterbacks run some, but especially whoever's under center for Oklahoma, I think is going to have to be effective on the ground in order for the Sooners to pull this one off.
It kind of goes back to the last time Oklahoma won this game without like an established RB1 that you feel great about was 2023, not very long ago. What happened there? Well, little old Dylan Gabriel became the first OU quarterback to throw for 275 and run for 100 against Texas ever. That includes a Jalen Hurts, that includes a Kyler Murray, that includes a Baker Mayfield. John, the good news is whether it's Mateer or Hawkins, they do it in slightly different ways. Mateer more of a power runner, a little bit at quarterback than the twitch of Michael Hawkins Jr. Like the good news is, I think that you're very, very comfortable with both those guys running the ball. I guess it's just if Mateer is playing, and this is part of why I think everyone was asking different variants of like, is it grip? Is it pain? What is the limiting factor? Because if it's grip, then you go, does that make Mateer more liable to maybe fumble? Because if Texas in its Mateer goes into this, they're going to be ripping at the right hand every time they get a chance. And that's what any defense should do in that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think if Mateer can't grip the football, there's very, very little chance that he'll play. He's not a tailback. He's their best rushing yardage option, maybe, but he's not a tailback. He doesn't need to be out there taking those hits, especially against that defense. Texas got a really good defense. Ryan, don't forget my special annual statistic that I dig up literally every year, dust off. I think I found it in 2013, and I've been using it pretty much every year since then. It builds on itself, and that is when in this game, when one of the quarterbacks has played in this game before and the other one has not, the one who played in the game before almost always wins. Over the last 30 years, 25 years, 35 years, over the last since 1990, the team whose quarterback has no experience going against a quarterback who has experience, 5-15-1, and that includes the last 3 wins by Jalen Hurts, Dylan Gabriel, and even Spencer Rattler got in there. Guys that were two guys that were experienced transfers from other schools, which had never been done before in this series. And then the other one was 2020, which was the COVID year, and there was nobody in the stadium. There was, 25% capacity. There wasn't a full stadium for, Spencer Rattler or whoever whoever might have been starting for the first time that game to get scared and pee down his leg, because that's what happens to these quarterbacks in this game. They get out there and they feel that pressure. In Mateer, now think about it. Mateer, you're talking about a guy from Dallas, okay? He grew up watching this game. He knows all about it. So for him to make his first start in the Red River rivalry could get a little sketchy for him. Guess what? His backup actually has more experience in this game than either Mateer or the Texas quarterback in this game, Arch Manning. What? So who does Oklahoma want at quarterback for this game? You want your starting quarterback who's never played in it before, or do you want your backup who knows what to expect, is going to be cool, calm, you'd think, right? Under pressure and all that.
The stat's the stat. They want their starting quarterback. Why? Because there's
Right.
a reason. There's a reason that Michael Hawkins Jr. is the backup, and it's because he can't set his feet. It's simple as that. It becomes too. It's not just about Michael Hawkins Jr. and John Mateer. It's about obviously the running back rotation, which has been puzzling behind Torrey Blaylock. I think we could say it's puzzling behind Blaylock. Blaylock has separated himself out, and then it's everybody else kind of figure it out. Xavier Robinson's in witness protection right now. Javonte Barnes comes into block. Javonte Barnes hasn't really run the ball. It's one of those things, Carson, where you look at it and for the CLU offensive line, they've been good in the pass block. We'll see what the run block is, but it's not like there's any consistency behind them outside of Torrey Blaylock to really get the scene together. And you saw, Jay Knott is back part of the world again. He left Witsec, and I think Xavier Robinson moved into his house, wherever that is.
Yeah, with Jaden Ott, I wrote about him the day after the game, and I'm not going to lie and say, oh, it was just this memorable, historic performance, because it wasn't. But he did show at least signs of that twitchiness, that speed, that strength that he has that we've obviously seen the tape of from his years at Cal. He looked efficient when he ran the ball. He also caught 2 passes. He's at least an option. I don't predict he's ever going to take the first team reps away from Blaylock this year, assuming Blaylock stays healthy. I think, like you said, Blaylock has really cemented himself as that RB1. A little bit of inconsistency, but that comes with being a freshman in the SEC. Really good games though against Temple. Looked really good with his touches against Kent State. It's not saying a whole lot, but Blaylock's obviously the lead man. Want to see more of Jaden Ott. He could be someone that they turn to for some screen passes, some quick stuff, like what he can bring. And then, yeah, who knows what Xavier Robinson's doing right now. Javonte Barnes has gotten some goal line touches, been decent with those. But it really is kind of just figuring out who is that number 2 behind Blaylock, because as solid as Blaylock has looked, they have to have someone else that can take a little bit of a load off and be consistent doing so.
It'll be. I'm interested to see too. Aber, we saw like a little bit of Oklahoma trying to use Shade Knott in the passing game. His best moment came right after though. He had to like bend all the way down and his knee touches the turf, and so it ended up not mattering. You got to be able to egg whether it's the quarterback or the running back, whatever. You got to get there without having to squat down. But I just look at this and like if it's Michael Hawkins and it's those early passes like that, the little touch passes to Satania and Burks, being able to get the ball out to the edges, and then you can use your Giovanni Gibson's, Jaron Kanik. It feels like with Hawkins, we saw it. Once he settled in the first half, things settled down, and then it was the decisive guy, things like that, where, yeah, that offense can move, and that offense can get stuff done in the Cotton Bowl. It feels like it's about how do you early build that confidence, because then once the confidence left, that's when it got a little, I don't know, not shaky as in like the game was bad, but a little just, hey, the arm slots are moving for no reason. You're not setting your feet, stuff like that. It feels like that could be huge, and that could come from a Jade Knott as well as Satania and Burks.
Yeah, I think they've got to do a good job of establishing that short passing game that sort of acts as an extension of the running game early in this one, especially if Hawkins is in there. Mateer, that changes the dynamic a little bit as far as that goes. But, Torrey Blaylock's been good so far, but let's not act like he's just been a superstar. He's been a guy who has, stepped forward and overperformed expectations because everybody else around him has underperformed expectations. And certainly that starts with Jaden Knott, but even Javonte Barnes, things like that. Barnes didn't play at all on Saturday against Kent State. We'll see, assume that he'll play at least some on Saturday. But they need to be able to be creative. And luckily for them, Ben Arbuckle has shown a penchant for creativity with things. It's a little bit different from, We know if Jeff Levy was in there, we'd be seeing Deion Burks on the end around like 3 or 4 times a game. Probably Satania in this offense, but that's gone out the window. But they're going to have to do some different kind of things to at least simulate an effective running game. Because if Texas can just lay back on you and drop back and force you to try to pick them apart with their secondary, even if Malik Muhammad isn't playing, which it sounds like there's a good chance that he plays. That'll be probably after John Mateer, the first thing to look for on the availability report tonight. But they still have a really good secondary, even if they struggled a little bit against Florida. And I think that's going to be fascinating to watch how that sort of chess match between the offense of Oklahoma and the defense of Texas performs when so much of the focus is on Brent Venables, the defensive mind, versus Steve Sarkisian, the offensive mind.
That's what I think too. If you can attack the perimeter early with quick passing, things like that, not only will it build confidence, but how many times have we seen it? If you can get guys like Ant Hill and Colin Simmons and this Texas defensive line to have to just run sideline to sideline and chase Oklahoma all over the field, even if it's just, 7 yards down the field at a time, but they're having to run 30 yards back and forth all over. That's why Oklahoma's in the indoor, right? So they can keep the tread on the tire this week while Texas gets all worn out under the beating hot sun in Austin and starts cramping up all over the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, you know who will be interesting to watch in his first Red River rivalry this year will be Ben Arbuckle, another Texas guy. He said he grew up, obviously in the Panhandle, closer to Norman than he is to Austin or even Dallas. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds to what Texas throws at him, because Kwiatkowski is gonna throw some exotic defenses. He's gonna come up with some fronts that they haven't shown yet. And, what level of preparation will Michael Hawkins, again, we're presuming he's the guy, what level of preparation is he going to have been presented to him during the week for when they do this? Okay, they've got, stuff that they've studied from last year and previous years that he's been the defensive coordinator. But this year, they're going to roll out some stuff that Hawkins may not be familiar with. Or, not just Hawkins, we put everything on the quarterbacks. Oklahoma's got some new linemen, some blockers up front that are going to have to recognize what front they're in and where's the mic and where's the pressure coming from and is this going to be a delayed blitz, stuff like that, because a lot of damage that Texas has done to Oklahoma over the years has been on stuff like that, tricky stuff that's an offensive coordinator might call a trick play, just junking up the defense a little bit. So I'll be interested to see how Ben Arbuckle responds, how he has prepared for that first, and then how he responds in the heat of the moment, especially with those infamous halftime adjustments. What does he do come out in the second half if things are going rough for the Oklahoma offense in the first half?
Brent talks about they have video of them walking down the tunnel so he can try to show people. It's about having them. Do you think that he has and this is where Buzzy Bolton and Mike Stoops almost got into fisticuffs and Buzzy had to walk to fair. Probably not. He's probably who is that and why? What happened? Anyway, something that could make life a lot easier on Mateer, on Hawkins, and on Arbuckle. Carson, Florida and DJ Lackway, they had the great just moment of, screw it, Dallas Wilson's down there somewhere. A lot of great stuff by Lagway, but to a certain extent, it was kind of I could just kind of throw this ball up here, a little get out of jail free card, get some momentum going. Feels like Oklahoma's weapons a little bit different than the Dallas Wilson experience. You've had Satanian's been good on third downs and just good here this last couple, but you get to really see Deion Burks be the Deion Burks that was billed coming from Purdue. Keontez Lewis, it sounds like, everything considering how scary that was on Saturday, it's maybe the absolute best case scenario. I still don't know what that means for Saturday. We'll see on the availability report. We have Giovanni Gibson up there. Jaron Canick's been really, really good over the middle of the field on third downs, things like that. Is this a spot where it might just be hey, the receivers got to do this much more as far as making a guy miss or stuff like that? That way when Arbuckle schemes an open, it's not just a 30-yard chunk, but that's where you get into the big plays that you house and that flips games as opposed to, big chunk play. And then maybe the defense can settle for a field goal and just be it's points, but it's not a touchdown. And everyone feels good about themselves.
Yeah, I do feel like the receivers, tight ends play a very big role in this year's game. Obviously, a much more fortuitous situation for the Sooners than last year in this department, just getting some guys from the portal, having Jaron Kanek be the standout that he's been at tight end. I think utilizing some of that size with Kanek, Giovanni Gibson, Ivan Carrion maybe. I think there's a lot of options that they can use to just kind of exploit that because let's face it, even though DJ Lagway had a career day against Texas's defense, that is still a very dang good defense. They still have the dudes, one of the most talented units in the nation. So, I mean, they need to find every advantage they can, and maybe some of that's finding Jaron Kanek on not only third down, but first and second down. Finding a formation for a guy like Ivan Carrion to come break off one like he did against Kent State on Saturday. I like how deep this receiver room is, and we've talked about this plenty of times. And they're a lot more favored in that way this year. Utilize some of the size from, or speed rather, from Satania, from Dion Burks. They have a lot of options. Just kind of, this is an opportunity for Arbuckle to see what's working, see what's not, and really go from there with how versatile this receiver and tight end room is.
Arbuckle's had an extra week to prepare for this game too. We're coming off the bye week. That they can say all that they want. If Oklahoma wasn't working on Texas during Kent State week, everyone should be fired.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody said earlier, I think it might have been Carson, that Illinois State was maybe not as good as Kent State, or Illinois State was maybe better than Kent State. I don't think there's any maybe to it. Illinois State was a much better representation of a college football team than Kent State. And yeah, they better have been doing some things looking ahead to this game, much like they did in the offseason, doing some things looking ahead to Michigan. And I think it's going to be interesting to me to see how this wide receiver tight ends group continues to shift a little bit. Especially now, we'll see obviously Keontez Lewis's status tonight, but with the addition of Giovanni Gibson, I'm really intrigued to see if Caden Helms winds up being a significant piece of things. We saw him with the touchdown catch the other day in really his first significant action of the year. I really liked him as far as body type, his physicality coming into that tight end group as far as pass catching, if he can ever stay healthy. That's just been the question for him. So how does that look with if Caden Helms gets added into the mix with Jaron Kanek there as a pass catching option? I think that'll be fascinating. But yeah, certainly the Ben Arbuckle, I think, has his hands full plenty this week. And I would anticipate some different kind of things than we've seen from this team over the first 5 games of the season.
Real quick, the touchdown pass to Caden Helms, was that not the ultimate what you want the week before Texas? The ultimate eye candy. Put him down on the goal line, slip him out. Oh my gosh, he's wide open. How did he get so open? Now the Texas defense is sitting here going, okay, watch him. When he comes in, he's going to be. Meanwhile, they're going to be doing something with Kanek or some other person way off screen that you can't see. It was perfect. It was just exactly what you want to dial up right before Texas. Give them something else to look at. Give them something to be concerned about. Make sure their weak side linebackers see, or their rush end or whatever. Make sure they see him. Okay, he comes in, waves his arms, checks in or something, and they make an announcement, eligible receiver or something. Hey, there he is. And then you go completely opposite. Perfect.
I think that might have been the only time that Ben Arbuckle was like pleased that a run wasn't explosive, because that was coming out of a quarter, I think, and they flip into the field. Helms is down there comboing. I can't remember if it was with Huggins or Kent, but on the first play, they run to the left, and he's comboing on the end. Then they run exact same look, come back the other way. He does the, nope, I'm not touching you. I'm going to slip through it. I was just like, that is... First off, great for Caden Helms, and then it's like, yeah, that's the perfect thing, like you say in Who, that pop that out there, bust some tendencies, one more thing to look at. Let me ask you guys this. How many points do you think it's going to take for Oklahoma to win this football game? Just simply put, go around the horn, because I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's got to be like a ton.
No, I'll say 20. I mean, I think they'll score maybe 20, and I think 20 is plenty to win the game. I don't think Texas is going to score anywhere near 20.
I'm going to say 24, just above that. I think Texas's offense still has potential. Their line looked horrible last week against Florida. So maybe not just a total defensive battle, but I also don't think this is going to be a points fest either.
Yeah, I think I'll go right in between that. Probably say 21. I think if they score 3 touchdowns, I think you would like for the defense not necessarily to get on the board with a defensive touchdown, but at least to get you a turnover that gets you really good field position to have a chance to score on a short field there. But I think if they're able to do that, if they're able to score 3 touchdowns, they've got to. It's hard to see a team scoring that much on Oklahoma right now, especially a team with, like Carson mentioned, the offensive line issues that Texas had, because they've been really bad up front. And Steve Sarkisian was asked a lot of questions about that on Monday. And, as many concerns as there are on Oklahoma's offensive line, there are more concerns with Texas right now with the way that they're rolling along. And you've got to think that guys like R. Mason Thomas, Jaden Jackson, David Stone, Marvin Jones Jr., Taylor Wine, on and on and on. Those guys are sort of, licking their chops at the chance to pin their ears back and get after Arch Manning on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. 17 to 20, somewhere in there. And you look at it, you're like, okay, well, Michael Hawkins Jr. put 20 points on the board on the road in Aber last year. And you had the other 7 points from Kip Lewis. And that was a much worse offense when it comes to weapons, offensive line health, all that stuff. I think that both Mateer and Hawkins are more than capable of putting that up on the board this week. And it feels like it's always going to come down to the same things it always does. Who has the backbreaking turnover? Who has the interception? Is it Quinn Ewers, who started both of the last 2 games with an interception? Is it special teams, punt block, stuff like that? And the other good news, too, is you flip this thing around. And, yeah, I think it was basically 10 minutes into the Sark press conference when you include the opening statement that he was finally asked about, like, do you know if John Mateer and Michael Hawkins Jr. is going to be playing? Because it was like every version of, do you have other people that are eligible to play left guard? Do you need to go to the silent count? Is it the clap? But it was basically like, this Texas offensive line is absolutely terrible. And John, when you look at it, I think that especially what they can't do up the middle, which is block anybody, Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, Dominic Williams, David Stone, Marcus Strong has flashed. And that, John, is just from the realm of like traditional, ordinary, vanilla when we're talking about defensive line play, defense, pressure, all that stuff.
Can we say that Texas's offensive line has been extraordinary this year?
I think that legitimately, if we were like ranking all of the units, whether it's OU receivers, Texas receivers, OU offensive line, Texas, I think the Texas offensive line might be the worst unit in this football game.
So Texas put 12 guys in the NFL draft last year. I think 3 of them were on the offensive line. They lost 4 guys from the offensive line overall. That's a school record for Texas, by the way. 12 guys getting drafted in one class. Pretty amazing, right? That's what Sark had to rebuild this year. That's what he had to replace. But yeah, you replace 4 guys on the offensive line. I think the right guard is the only one who's returning. You're going to have some work to do, as everybody in Norman knows, right? You've got some shuffling, and that's what's been going on up there. They're 69th in the country right now in sacks allowed, which I was actually fairly impressed by that. The amount of pressure that's been on Arch over the first 4 or 5 games of the season. You come out of those games thinking, okay, they're probably down in the 80s, 90s, hundreds in sacks allowed. To be 69th is a testament to Arch's escapability. He's been carrying that offense. He's not been good. He's been at times dreadful. His mechanics are terrible, but he's getting himself out of those pressure situations. He's getting pressured. He's getting himself out. He's getting hit by the defensive line. He's able to make positive yards. So he's escaping sacks. So they should be further down. They should be in the 90s in sacks allowed. Meanwhile, you look at the Oklahoma defense, guys. This OU defense ranks first in the country in sacks. They rank first in the country in a lot of stuff. They rank first in total defense third down defense, quarterback sacks. They're number 2 in pass defense. They're number 2 in first downs allowed. They're number 2 in scoring defense. They're number 5 in run defense. None of this bodes well for the Texas offense, which, again, 3 starters return. Wisner, the running back, I think he's the only SEC returning running back who ran for 1,000 yards last year. He's not having a great season yet because the offensive line stinks. Arch Manning, the greatest high school recruit since Quinn Ewers, maybe. He's not having a great season because the offensive line stinks. And the receivers, who brought some guys back from a really good receiver core last year and added some dudes in the transfer portal, they're not having a good year because, of course, Manning is not having a good year because the offensive line stinks. So everything, as Oklahoma fans know from 2024, boils down to how much can your offensive line do? If it can't do very much, you can't call very much offense.
Yeah, and it is interesting because, yes, it's a new offensive line, but with how much money they spent to assemble the, quote, pancake factory or whatever they call it, I think that's the nickname they have for it, they look inept. And yes, Arch Manning has not looked good. He, as John just said, his mechanics aren't there yet. He does not look comfortable, but a lot of it is the offensive line. He's made some really good throws. I know Florida, he had some good throws in that game too. But because the line, I mean, that's the root of their offensive problems. We've seen Wisner, he can run the ball up there with the Ahmad Hardys, Le'Veon Mosses, some of the best backs in the league. I'd put Wisner in that category. Then you got a guy like Ryan Wingo. Jack Injuries should be one of the best tight ends in the country after getting him from Cal in the portal. They have so many weapons, but they've been so dang inconsistent on the line. And I mean, that's a recipe for disaster when you look at this OU defense against a similarly limping offensive line that Auburn had a couple weeks ago. I mean, OU won that battle 9 times out of 10. Jaden Jackson, David Stone. Name a guy that didn't have a big day that saw regular reps in that game. I mean, it was just dominant. And I mean, Texas has to get things figured out very quickly if they don't want to be the team giving up 9, 10 sacks in a game.
Yeah, for sure. Because like I said earlier, Oklahoma's going to be, pinning their ears back, getting after Arch Manning. I think OU has to be cognizant of Arch Manning on the ground, though. I mean, heck, you look at his rushing numbers. He's their leading rusher right now, even with the sacks that they've allowed, like we've talked about. But still, it's rushed for 160 yards to this point. I think they've got to force him to make quick decisions, but also be smart about things. Because if you let him get free, then he can at least hurt you a little bit there on the ground. And we've seen, Oklahoma at times, and not this defense this year, but at times over the last few years, struggle with quarterbacks with some mobility. I think they're much better equipped to handle that this year than they have been. But I think pick your spots and take chances, but also don't be dumb about it and try to do too much and then wind up over pursuing. And then that's when those big massive chunk plays happen. And I think you've got to at least be cognizant of that if you're Brent Venables in this Oklahoma defense.
We saw Jackson Arnold was good at times, a couple of big rushes. It wasn't a ton of them, but it was just basically 2 or 3. And if John Mateer with the broken thumb hadn't led all the way back down the field, we were talking about, hey, Jackson Arnold was the 4th and 10, 4th and 11, needed it, got 12. And that's the kind of thing that Oklahoma just has to avoid on top of being disciplined on the bootlegs, things like that. And it's about limiting the explode. Like, Oklahoma defense is going to have a ton of success. I think they're going to ring up a bunch of sacks. Florida dominated the line of scrimmage. That was a defensive line that ranked 134th in sacks coming into that week, and either 114th or 115th in tackles for loss entering last week. And they feasted. And I expect Oklahoma to be in the backfield as well. But it becomes about, can you limit the explosive? Something that Kobe McKenzie was talking about on Monday night, that when Texas gets one of those chunk plays, they then, on those drives, lead the country in scoring offense, is kind of what Kobe was talking about, which is like, yeah, run the touchdown play, duh. But when you look at it, Oklahoma's been really, really good at that. You think of that same Auburn game, The couple of drives where Coleman has a really, really big catch. You think of the second one where they're backed up on the goal line. He gets that catch near midfield, and then Oklahoma's able to slowly work it back, aided by some false starts, some holding, stuff like that. Feels like, hey, it's OU Texas. Offenses are going to pop plays. It's college football. No one's going to be perfect for 60 minutes, 4 quarters, but Oklahoma this year, John's been really, really good at, okay, you got the one big play, and as long as that thing doesn't go for a touchdown, they're flexed their muscles and finding a way to field goals, force punts, get off the field on 3rd and 4th down. That's a recipe for success here in the Cotton Bowl.
It is, and Oklahoma has been exceptional on defense in a lot of those areas. Again, Michigan's offense had its limitations. We know what those were. Auburn's offense had its limitations. We know what those were too. The other offenses they faced, not very good. So, but in the course of 5 games, you stitch all those together, right? You're doing a little patchwork, quilt work kind of thing. Each little square in itself is not like the most amazing thing you've ever seen, but when you stitch them together and you got 5 games to look at, all of a sudden the Oklahoma body of work does look exceptional. There's been we've seen this, guys, over the past 15 years. Well, Oklahoma's got draft picks on the defense. Oklahoma's got all conference players on the defense. Oklahoma's got a pretty good defense this year. Oklahoma's defense stinks in certain situations, and they allow drives to continue, and they give up big plays, and they couldn't stop the run, and then they couldn't stop the pass. They couldn't get after the quarterback. None of that applies to this year's defense, again, through 5 games. So that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing, is how much of the Sark genius that he's got up here, the play calling, the tempo, the timing, how much of that is going to be directly applicable to what we've seen from the Oklahoma defense so far. Now, Texas hasn't had much to work with. It almost feels like Texas is sandbagging a little bit, doesn't it? Like they're limping like the little owl or something that's like, oh, I can't get, I'm injured. Please don't anybody come and kill me out in the wild. And then you see somebody come after and they're like, pounce. Okay. That's probably a lame analogy, but it does feel like Texas is just kind of limping along, like 63rd in the country in scoring, 87th in first downs. They're, 55th in rushing, 56th in passing, and 51st overall. 69th in sacks allowed is the one that really stands out to me. Their 3rd down offense has been just dreadful, 115th in the country. Those 2 things, when you put them against what Oklahoma has done this year, those 2 things is what's going to tip this game. Excuse me, guys. Those 2 things is what's going to tip this game toward Oklahoma's favor. I think if you're doing like a confidence factor kind of thing, like Oklahoma's defense versus Texas's offense, what's your confidence in Oklahoma's offense? Against Texas defense, not very high, 35% maybe. It'd be like a 35-65. But if you flip that around and say, what's your confidence in Texas's offense against Oklahoma's defense? I'd say 80-20 for OU. OU's defense has been that good this year.
I didn't realize the owl was so predatory. The devious owls sitting there trying to
really smart.
Everybody.
They're really smart, and they eat red meat. And they're like, oh, if they can't get it from out of the sky, they lure them in.
Head on the swivel too. That's what Arch has had to have, his head on the swivel. It's been turned around backwards a couple times. Here's something else too. Before we even dive into the OU personnel on defense, and it stood out to me as Eddie and I were crunching some of the numbers. The last 2 games, one of those is a road game at Florida, so you would expect offensive line going to struggle, stuff like that. Home against Sam Houston State 2 weeks ago, Texas, 8 offensive penalties, 3 false starts at home against Sam Houston State. They had 8 offensive penalties again in the swamp against Florida. So far through 5 games, 13 false starts. That's not just playing at Ohio State. That's not just playing at Florida. They have had issues all year long. Home, away, nobody, big-time defense. 9 holding penalties on the offense. You know what that tells me? They're in their head. They know that they're probably going to get beat, so they're having to turn and grab somebody, or they're false starting. And we know this isn't a road game, but Aber, just because you're on the Texas half of the field, or think about a couple of years back, deep into the OU half of the field when Texas false started multiple times. That was that NFL-laden offensive line that Brent Venables talks about, that wall of noise coming from the red half of the Cotton Bowl. part of why Texas has been so bad on third down is that they feel like they've lived in 3rd and 11, 3rd and 15, because if they're not getting beat, there are some procedural issues. It's not been a team that has been paying attention to all the details and is majored in the minors, as all the coaches like to talk about.
Yeah, and I think if Texas is to find something in this game offensively and turn it around, they have got to clean that up, because in a game like this, the environment you talk about, all the other external factors that are different in this game from any other game, the team that generally uh, doesn't commit as many penalties and doesn't commit as many turnovers is going to win the game. And I think in this one, certainly that's going to be the case. And I think Texas has got to, we talk about the Oklahoma side so much, but Texas, if their path to win this game has got to be playing cleaner than they have, because like you said, it's not just the environments that they've gone into. It's not just Ohio State and Florida. It's been an every game issue, and those things get magnified in this game, as we've seen. I'm not saying that they have to necessarily win the penalty battle, because we've seen some teams. Heck, I think about that Oklahoma offense with Orlando Brown. Not too well. It's been a while ago at this point, but I'm getting old. But that one had a nasty, mean edge to it, so they got a fair amount of like personal foul calls, but they were so good that they could overcome that, and the benefit of that was greater a lot of times than just the 15 yards. But you cannot get those procedures, offsides calls, things like that, and expect to beat a team whose defense is as good as Oklahoma's.
Especially a team, Carson, that's got veteran linebackers and Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis. Kip's played a big role in this game before. That's where it was his coming out party of Kip Lewis 2 years ago, basically saying like, yeah, if you need a penetrator on the goal line, I'm here to deliver your goal line stop. And then you look at, I know that Jaden Jackson and Dominic Williams didn't give it a go on Saturday. But it looked like, Carson, that those guys were precautionary. Will they pop up on the availability report? We'll see tonight. But those look like dudes that if they needed to go, they would have gone. And that entire defensive line has feasted.
Yeah, that just the entire front seven has been ridiculous. And I think the depth is one of the most impressive parts of it. Especially, I know, yes, we've said this so many times. It was Kansas State, relax. But look at how many guys in games where OU's gotten big leads, guys like Taylor Wine, Taylor Heim for that matter, Marcus Strong, guys on the front that aren't starters, probably won't be starters for the rest of the year, that have looked awesome. And then you bring in your stars, your Grayson Holtons, Dominic Williams, Jaden Jackson, everybody pretty much on the edge at this point. That is a huge key in this game. The secondary is good, but I mean, you got Eli Bowen coming back from an injury, might be a little bit rusty. Cortland Guillory, we've seen that he's going to be a very good player in this defense. Still a freshman, though. I feel like the bread and butter of this defense is the front of it, and it's been good time and time again. You look at Jeremiah Cobb and Justice Haynes, both phenomenal running backs that OU has stopped. Both of them had one really long run each. I think Cobb's went for 40, Haynes' went for 75. But aside from those two plays, OU's defense did a phenomenal job. And those are two backs that we'll probably be seeing on Sundays one day, both phenomenal players. Haynes has some of the best numbers in the country this year. So, I mean, those two games show me the most that I'm confident in, as far as they can play some really good running backs. Weisner fits that bill, but OU's defense is more than up for the task.
I think shout out to OU's defensive line here, right? David Stone ranks #1 according to Pro Football Focus among all SEC defensive tackles in his defensive rating and his pass rush rating. Or was that run defense? No, it was run defense rating. And then R. Mason Thomas leads the edge rushers. I think he leads the country in edge rush percentage, win rate, whatever their metric is. They've got two of the top guys, interior and edge rusher, in the country through the first 5 games. Just remarkable.
It's and it feels like for R. Mason, Not that he's been bad in the first couple of games, but as Brent likes to say, everything is right on time. It reminds me of last year a lot. Of R. Mason was really close, really, really close early. Then it was like the Tulane game where he finally was able to hit home in the fourth quarter. Then he wrecked shop on the last drive of the Auburn game, and he kind of picked up that closer nickname. Well, took him, 2 snaps once he was back in the second half against Auburn, finally gets to the quarterback, and seems like he's just a guy that early in the year, once that happens, all of the pressure kind of washes away. He's an absolute menace, and I think that's going to be huge, Aber, when you talk about, I don't know what the formula is going to be for the secondary. Do you roll Gentry and Eli Bowen first, even if you know Eli Bowen's not going to play 100% of the snaps? Cortland's going to be in that rotation. I just don't know if it's like you start with your veterans and then you ease Cortland Guillory into the game, or Cortland Guillory's been starting for you the whole time. You just roll him out there and figure it out between Gentry and Eli. I know those guys are going to rotate a ton. Like, they're all going to play.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think in this game, experience, as Hoove talked about with his quarterback stat from earlier, in this game, experience can mean so much. And maybe, and heck, maybe it depends on which end of the field you start on. Do you throw Cortland in if they're at the OU end of the field versus the Texas end, where you might feel more comfortable going with Gentry or Eli to start. But I think certainly we'll see all of those guys. It'll be fascinating to see just what this secondary rotation looks like. I had Kendall Dolby as my sort of under the radar guy last week because of looking toward this game. How much does he play? How does he factor into things? We've seen Kendall Daniels be used so many different ways. So I think that'll be fascinating to see how all of those pieces fit together. But they certainly are going to need big time plays from all of those guys. But I think certainly Cortland Guillory needs to take some steps forward. And I'll be fascinated to see just how far Eli Bowen is around. We saw him play, a decent amount of snaps last week. I think, what was it, somewhere around 25. I think that was a good baseline for him. But certainly he'll be tested in a way that he hasn't this year Saturday. But last year he was really good in those kind of situations where he's matched up with big time players, and we'll see if he's ready for that again on Saturday.
Ryan, I have a quick question.
Eli was. Okay, go ahead.
We talked about. I think Carson said the OU secondary's been pretty good. Okay, sort of. The question is, are guys in our quarterbacks, opposing quarterbacks, holding the ball so long? Right, we've seen this 3 or 4 times. Jackson Arnold. The long-haired kid from Kent State, I can't remember his name, Drew, last week. Guys are holding the football so long. Is it because the receivers are covered that well? Are we not giving enough credit to the OU secondary for producing all those sacks and all those pressures?
There were runners open against Kent State. That quarterback was a joke. So I'm going to go with no on that. Jackson Arnold, is that the OU secondary? Is that Jackson Arnold? Like, I'm asking. Jackson Arnold pats the football.
Yeah. And then Bryce Underwood's a true freshman. So,
well, Michigan's problem is that if Biff Poggi was the head coach, we might have had an actual good offensive battle there. That Sharon Moore's going to run into the Coliseum. He put the handcuffs back on Bryce Underwood, and they had to survive.
That's my Ryan, always taking out the chainsaw when it's necessary.
It's like I told you post game. I don't think Sharon Moore's going to be there in 3 years. Just look at what happened with Biff, and they open it up. It's huge. But here's the good thing though, and I think the secondary's been pretty good. It's just been a couple of spots here and there. Last year, one of the only players who might want to remember the Texas game was Eli Bowen. He was one of the few bright spots post the pair of fumbles right before half where suddenly the game was busted open. It was just a headache. 2 years ago, outside of Dylan Gabriel, hard to deny Dylan Gabriel, hard to deny Walter Rouse blocking 2 guys at once on that final snap of the game. Gentry Williams might have been the other best player in that game, though. He had the interception early where he jumped the slant to help Oklahoma. He had the big pop was that Dolby that ended up with the pick on the Texas goal line after
I believe it was.
Gentry popped? Or was that the Billy and Dolby that combined, and then Gentry had another one where he basically forced a fumble. I can't remember what it was, but Gentry was excellent 2 years ago in this game. You've got two corners that have played well in the Cotton Bowl, and I think that might be worth more than the Golden Hat. Like as far as just monetarily going into this game, you want the Golden Hat, but that's gold to have two of those guys that have shown out and had great performances on Fair Park.
Yeah, Oklahoma's got, if you look at the roster, Oklahoma's got guys that have been through this particular battle before, and they've got guys like the two transfers we mentioned, Kendall Daniels and Marvin Jones, guys who have been in big games. So, yeah, I mean, those dudes came in and they absolutely just strengthened what Oklahoma was bringing back and Brent Venables was bringing back on this defense.
They've also got someone that can help the defense out and the offense. When we get to the third phase of this game, the special teams, it's always massively important. It feels like these games are defined almost by special teams. You look at it, Texas is in the hundreds in net punting. Oklahoma is right up there in the top 5. Grayson Miller has been a weapon for this Oklahoma defense. He had another one against Kent State that rolled out there at the 1. And when you look at Texas having the trouble with net punting, now Texas has a good return game. Texas and then both Isaiah Satania, really good returners. But Oklahoma's cover team's been really good, and Texas has not really done a good job of flipping the field. And if this is a cagier, lower scoring game, Carson, I mean, we went through this with the Michigan game, we went through this with the Auburn game, where at times the task of the offense is actually, like, if you get points, yes, that's awesome, but can you pick up 2 first downs and make sure that Grayson Miller didn't have to punt from the orange grass or the red grass? Can you make that happen? Because Oklahoma's been really, really, really good across the board, especially teams outside of like dropped the fumble and had the roughing the kicker against Michigan. Texas had the punt blocked against Florida, but outside of that, Oklahoma's been pretty steady.
Yeah, special teams has been fantastic. And might I remind you guys, my bold prediction this year was Tate Sandell wins the Groza. Not saying that's going to happen, but he's looked pretty dang good this year. After that first miss against Michigan, hasn't missed since. So he's been fantastic. Miller, I mean, you got to feel a little sympathy for Jacob Ulrich coming in. Punted a couple times well against Illinois State, but Miller has just come in and been a star. That last punt that he had against Kent State that you just mentioned, Ryan, that was a beauty of a kick. Just couldn't have drawn it up better than it ended up. But it will be huge for whether it's Hawkins, material leading the offense. Get the guy in some decent situations to punt. Don't be punting from your own 10-yard line. Yes, Miller has a good leg. Yes, he can boot it far. So it might not be the worst case situation field position wise. But I mean, when you have a punter that's that good at pinning opponents inside the 20, the 10, however close to the goal line, utilize what you can, even if it's not, oh, we're going to get 3 points. We're going to not get 7 points this drive. Give them a little something to work with. And I think that's it could be an advantage. Texas has good special teams as far as returning goes, but I feel like you just said, across the board, special teams has not been an issue.
Aber, Texas moved to kick Bert Auburn out the door and bring in Mason Shipley from Texas State as a kicker. Who would have thought it's the UTSA transfer is the transfer from the state of Texas that we be coming in? You look at Sandell, he's one of 13 kickers that's hit multiple 50-yard attempts this year. And for Shipley,
and had a couple that are right under that too.
Yeah. He had a
like those are
yarder.
Just his only time where he's kicked long ones.
Yeah, and he's also kicked in the Michigan game and the Auburn game, which are two like important games too.
Yeah, we're starting to see the confidence, the swagger, that kind of attitude that Brent Venables talked about seeing from Tate Sandell over the offseason and talked about probably one of the most surprising things that we heard at SEC Media Day was when Brent Venables was talking about Tate Sandell and how strong he talked about the confidence, the attitude. Said he was approached things like an NFL kicker in that way, and he certainly, after that miss against Michigan, which was still a fairly long one, what was it, 44? I think it was maybe. He has been so good. Grayson Miller again has been fantastic. Isaiah Satania, seems like it's inevitable that he's going to break one at some point. If he's able to do that on Saturday, that would be a big, push in OU's favor. But how about OU? It seems like the last couple of years they've made a decision at punter, and for some reason they've had to change. And last year, Luke Elzinga was phenomenal for them, and now Grayson Miller appears to be following a very similar path.
Doug Deacon playing some major league chess in the transfer portal, isn't he? I mean, holy cow. Early returns for National Coach of the Year from the transfer portal, if there is such a thing. You got Satania, you got Sandell, and got Grayson Miller. And just kind of some of these guys, you just find them. Like, he used to play soccer. He'll be all right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, on a team with so many great stories. I mean, we talk about Owen Heineke and his path to where he is right now, contributing to this defense. You talk about John Mateer and his path, and so many other guys who have had these circuitous routes that have led them to Oklahoma in this sort of perfect storm. I mean, Grayson Miller might be at the top of that list. To be playing soccer at, what was it, Lubbock Christian, I think, and then to wind up kicking at UCO much closer to home, and then make the transition to OU has just been phenomenal. And as out of left field as any story that I can think about in a long, long time. With
it reminds
team,
me of Dominique Whaley.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a very similar story. The only thing was that
Subway
maybe
sandwiches.
Grayson Miller, maybe Grayson Miller worked at a Subway shop in Norman at some point. But hey, whatever it has worked for this special teams unit, because they've been fantastic all around. And not only with those groups, but the coverage groups as well. I mean, Elijah Thomas, you see him racking up. Who would have thought that Elijah Thomas would have more tackles than catches at this point? But he's been a very effective special teams player for them. And certainly that wasn't something that was expected. But, they've been really good all around. And I think you've got to give Doug Deacon a lot of credit for the job that he's done in putting together these special teams groups.
It's been pretty incredible, and it's going to play a huge role on Saturday. Every Friday, we get around, start projecting final score predictions, all that stuff. So I'm not going to ask you to put a score on it, gentlemen, because we'll publish that. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com is the place to be for that. But how do you see this thing playing out? It's a big game. It's massive for so many reasons. From the Texas side of things, if you lose this game, you're done. Like, the season's over. You walk out of the Cotton Bowl 3-3. 2 losses at this point in the season before you even get to, they have to go to Georgia later on. That A&M game, A&M looks fantastic. Like, they're just dead in the water, done. You flip it around, you only have 1 loss in conference. If you can find a way to pull this thing out of the fire, you've got some new life. And for Oklahoma, whether Mateer's back or it's Hawkins leading the way, I mean, you win this one and you're going to unquestionably be in that conversation right at the front. Can you not only make a CFP and be one of those teams bounced around, can you roll that to Columbia next weekend? Can you continue to stay on this path and maybe have an inside track to get to Atlanta, depending on how the rest of October kind of works out? How do you it's a fool's errand for us to project how we think this is going to go, because in the first quarter, there's going to be 7 dumb things where we're like, well, we're off the rails, whatever. But we're going to try.
I covered those 2013, 2014 games where one team was a double-digit favorite, ended up losing by the double digits. Like, so it's worthless to try to predict what's going to happen in this game. It's just so crazy. But I'm really, really, really struggling to find an avenue where Texas wins this football game. I think this could go one of two ways, guys. I think Oklahoma could win a close game. There's no doubt. The way I see it shaking out is Oklahoma makes a bunch of mistakes. Texas capitalizes, gets a fumble return or something like that, scoop and score, and Texas ends up winning a close game. I'd say there's about a 30, 35, 40% chance that happens. the real big chance of something happening, the way I've been evaluating this game all week, I think Oklahoma wins in a blowout. I think Oklahoma could absolutely mop the floor. You've got a defense that has allowed 36 points and has forced 40 punts. What? That's insane. So against this Texas offense, they could get overwhelmed. It could be something where when you're that good at the line of scrimmage compared to your opponent in this game, we've seen it. We've seen wipeouts. We've seen historic blowouts. We've seen shutouts. So when that happens, don't be surprised if Oklahoma wins this thing something like 38-10. Seriously, I'm not saying that's my final prediction. I'm just saying if that happens, don't be surprised. The problem is this. Okay, so let's quickly reassess where Texas came from. Texas this year came from Sark's last two seasons, winning the Big 12, and then going into the SEC, getting into the playoff. That's that produced where we're at right now with Texas, starting the season for the first time in school history as a preseason number one. Seriously, first time in school history, preseason number one. Texas had a complete rebuild. Sark had a complete offensive rebuild, especially for the offense, as I said. They became, as a result, the fastest team in history to go from preseason number one to out of the polls. They did it in 6 short weeks. The previous record was USC, who did it in 12 weeks. So it took USC to do it, to go from number one to unranked 12 weeks. Texas did it in 6. That's a real problem for Texas. They've hired an offensive-minded coach, and guess what? The offense this year stinks. The offensive line stinks. The quarterback stinks. Everybody else on the roster is just kind of meh, And they've done all this. Think about this, guys. Texas has done all this by stacking one top-ranked recruiting class after another. They've done it with what's been reported as a roster that's commands $40 million. They've got the deepest pockets in the country in all of college football. They've got an endless NIL and revenue share resources, and they've got Arch Manning, and they're 3-2. I think Texas could be teetering. I really think Texas could be on the verge of having a 5 or 6 loss season. And this thing, if it gets sideways quick, they could find themselves getting blown out.
It'll be interesting to see for sure. I mean, just presuming that Michael Hawkins plays, I don't have a whole lot of faith in what OU's offense can do. Yes, they're a lot better around Michael Hawkins than they were last year. Michael Hawkins has certainly developed a little bit, but there are still so many things that you look at and you're like, that's an inconsistency right there. Most notably his footwork. If he's the guy, I think it's an ugly game. I think it could go either way. I don't see either team necessarily pulling away. The good news, though, is I feel like in an ugly game with OU being led by Michael Hawkins against Texas defense, I still feel like the advantage is much bigger for Hawkins and the OU offense than it is for Texas's inept offense against OU's really dang good defense. I just think it could be one of those games where maybe it is first to 15 points wins the game. But if Mateer plays, yes, he's never played in this game. Neither is Arch Manning. That would make things a little bit more fortuitous for Oklahoma. We saw what he's done against very good Auburn and Michigan defenses thus far. Yes, it's a crazy atmosphere. Yes, he's going to make some mistakes. I still think with how good the defense is, Mateer's poise, I think the game could get out of hand in that scenario. But if it is Hawkins, I think it's low scoring. I think it's ugly. But I'd still think OU has a better chance than Texas does.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, Carson. I think that, if John Mateer plays, OU has a chance to sort of run away and hide with it. If Michael Hawkins plays, I don't think that happens. I don't think they blow it out. But when you look at the range of possibilities, I think a Texas blowout win is the one that I would, eliminate from that table. There, I think Texas' path to win is to keep it close, to force big, special teams or defensive points, and able to win like that. For Oklahoma, play it clean. I think if Michael Hawkins is able to come in there and I think, you ask me right now, I'm going to bet on John Mateer playing in this game. But if it's Michael Hawkins, avoid turnovers. Don't have a start like the South Carolina game last year where it was just over 5 minutes in because your inability to hold on to the ball. Be smart. Let your defense do a lot of the heavy lifting, and then just be able to take advantage when they do that. So I think this is going to be a fairly low scoring game. I think about that the Superman game and the way that game sort of played out, the low scoring nature of that one. What was it, 12-0 there? I think
14-3.
not necessarily thinking that this is going to be that low scoring game, but let's not write off Texas quite yet. They have all those problems. The offensive line's a mess. Their running game hasn't been very good at all, but they've still got a defense that can jump up and bite you. And if you let them stay in it, they can get some confidence and get things rolling there. So I think for OU, it's about getting off to a quick start, avoiding turnovers, and if those happen, I think Oklahoma comes out with a not a 63-0 win, anything like that, but they can win fairly handily if they're able to do those things.
It's a I like the way that the pathways to victory, Aber. The last 3 years, I think that Texas has had more pathways to victory. They went 2-1 of those games. That doesn't mean that because you have more pathways to victory necessarily that you are like condemned to lose. I think that Michael Hawkins Jr. is more than capable of winning this football game with Oklahoma if that's what they have to deal with. And I look to that Auburn game a year ago. I think that's the path forward. You have really good defense. And this Oklahoma defense is even better than that Oklahoma defense was. And he converted on a big-time run that was phenomenal. And then he nailed J.J. Hester for a big one. And he's got better weapons. I think that you feel even better about it if John Mateer's got that. But I do think one thing's going to happen. And this is not like a bold prediction. I think this is going to happen. Do you guys remember the notable happening of the 2019 Oklahoma-Texas game?
Jalen Hurts threw interceptions at first, didn't he? And then came back and carried the team.
Oklahoma comes out and sets a Red River shootout record, 9 sacks from this Oklahoma defense in 2019. That was like the crowning achievement, right, of Alex Grinch and the Havoc and all that stuff. Oklahoma against a much better Auburn offensive line has already had 9 sacks this year. I think they're going to set a school record. I think Texas offensive line is that bad. They have been that bad. The Florida D-line is not good, and they just had 6. Why can't Oklahoma go out there and have 10? They also showed, too, typically when you think about that, it's got to be oh my gosh, Oklahoma's jumped out in front, so Texas having to drop back to pass 50 times, stuff like that. That was a tight game against Auburn, and the defensive line absolutely feasted. Like, I'm not kidding. I legitimately think Oklahoma's got a real shot to get to 8, get to 9, even set that school record at sacks, and I think that's going to be the difference, and I think if John Mateer plays, this game's not going to particularly be close.
If they get that many sacks, it's a blowout.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
If they get that many sacks, it's a blowout.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. And so Chapman, so no taking away a Marvin Jones Jr. sack this time around. That's what you're saying.
Well, Marvin nothing good can stay with Marvin. So I think that this time maybe he gets the sack, but there's an offside on the other side of the field, like a misaligned corner or something. And he's just I had the face mask. I had the horse caught. Could someone just leave my sack on the board, please?
That's funny. Yeah, if it's that one-sided up front, and I agree with you, Ryan. I think it very well could be. Then this thing gets in the 30s or 40s because OU's offense is going to get chance after chance after chance if that's the case. So half of those 40 punts, more than half, 23 of those 40 punts have been on a 3-and-out situation, I think, where the other team's opposing offense is just getting smothered on every drive. So, yeah, if that happens, game's already over. Because the Texas offensive line, like you said, has been bad. Frankly, the Texas offense has been bad. Manning has held the ball too long in some situations. He's saved them by escaping and getting out and even running for first downs, but he's also held the ball too long. He gets a little pressure. His feet get happy. His arm angle gets wonky. His accuracy goes down. So, yeah. Here's my question, guys, is if you're Texas and you're coming off those 2 really good years, right? And you're on the Texas roster, and you hear you're 3-2 now, and you hear your coach say in a press conference, how many other of the 135 teams in the country could go win on the road at Ohio State and Florida? That was so weak. I thought that was so weak. Come on. That's your defense for going 3-2, is that you had to go to Ohio State and you had to go to Florida. I mean, here's the deal. Good job playing Ohio State. Not a lot of teams choose to go into the horseshoe and compete. And if you think about it, frankly, the few who do choose to, they usually don't win. I mean, OU did way back in 2017, right? But no shame losing to the Buckeyes in Columbus. I think where Sark stuck his foot in the mouth this week was, oh, we went to the swamp. The swamp, it's so hard to play there. Guys, I looked it up. I've got that stat right here, actually. I don't have to Google it, as they say. Over the last 10 seasons, Florida's home record is 44-14. It's not bad, but that's not a house of horrors. 44-14. They've had 2 undefeated home records in the last 10 years. None since 2019. That includes, checks notes, a loss this year to, checks notes, South Florida. South Florida came into the swamp. South Florida Bulls, yeah, came into the swamp and won. Now, if you're Sark, here's the deal. I get it. You're Texas. You got to tell everybody how hard your schedule is, right? If Florida goes 44-14 over the last 10 years, hey, that's pretty good. You know why? Because Texas is only 43-14 at home over the last 10 years. So, yeah, that's a hard place to play. And I'll tell you what, Sark can straight up miss me with how tough it is to play this SEC schedule. Come on. For the first 2 years of OU and Texas being in the SEC, you guys, I believe the strength of schedule rankings, depending on who you follow, Oklahoma's number 1 or 2, and Texas is number 13, 14, or 15 in the SEC. So we all know that Texas has been given a massive, a thank you from Greg Sankey, so to speak, when it comes to the schedule. Come on.
And that kind of talk is not going to play in Austin, especially if they lose Saturday. You could say all you want about the coaching hot seat and everything like that, but when you lose, if you're Texas and you lose those 3 games and you're talking like that,
yep,
that hot seat starts getting cranked up just a little bit in Texas, because the patience wears thin there, especially when they start hearing excuses like that, because they're not looking to get any kind of moral victories or anything like that. That stuff plays out at North Texas, where South Florida is going to be on Friday night this week. It doesn't play in Austin.
Listen, I can kind of get behind Sark when he's talking about who else wins at the shoe against Ohio State. Defending national champion, that is one of the best atmospheres in college football. They're still the number 1 team. I kind of hear him there. Florida, that's an inept team. And yes, the swamp is a hard place to play, even if the record isn't just amazing there over the last 5 or 6 years. That is an inept team with Lagway, who I think's fighting an injury. He looks injured right now. Billy Napier's seat is as hot as anyone's right now. That team lost to South Florida at home. I mean, I think there are, at the very least, 20 teams with less talent than Texas has that could probably win at the swamp right now in college football. Maybe that's too high of a number, but there are plenty of teams that can do it, especially when you look at the dudes in that part of the comment. Not Ohio State. I understand you, Sark. The second half, yeah, go play Florida in the swamp. A lot of teams in the league have to do that. And it's just, yeah, that is, like Aber just said, a way to lose the fan base.
Did you say that Steve Sarkisian was dangerously close to labeling their position as better than most?
Better than most.
They're close, Ryan.
Real close. Real close. One better than most mention means I have to inform you guys. We will actually have 4 bodies inside the Cotton Bowl on Saturday. Hoove, Carson, and I will all be up. Hoove and I up in the box, Carson on the field. The great Brady Trent will be a man on the street. He's actually going to be in Dallas at the game. So if there's any fights in the stands or anything like that, he'll be on top of that. Aber's going to be running point from home. He'll be all over the place like Spider-Man. But one better than most means one Brady Trent.
he'll be right in the middle of them. If there's any fights in the stands, look for Brady. He'll be right there.
No, I think that Brady will just look around and be like, well, this seems maybe have another beer and love everyone. I don't know. Put some Metallica on and relax.
Yeah, maybe Brady, starts crowd surfing during the game.
Now that would be something. We'd have him right about that. If you want to find all of our game coverage, it's overflowing all over the place. You pop open one of these floorboards and you look under. We got stories all over the place. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com is the place to be. I think we have written every word that could possibly be written about Michael Hawkins Jr., about John Mateer, all that fun stuff. Carson had a story on how the offensive line's getting ready for this bad boy, especially with 3 pieces on that group that have never played an OU Texas game. Brady today wrote about Kobe McKenzie and how Oklahoma's viewing this Texas offense. How big a game is this for Brent Venables? Well, Brady Trantham's going to tell you, as well as Ryan Aber. We're going to have some tail of the tape style stuff all Thursday, all Friday. Who has the advantages? What can be pressed upon here that will be decisive? We'll have all that and so much more. So just keep going to Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Bookmark it, tell your friends. That is the place to be. The next time you'll hear from us will be from the press box at the Cotton Bowl. Hoover and I will tell you if the Wi-Fi worked or not. That's just our simply put, all we want to know.
I have heard, Ryan, just to go back to a point you made very early, that the bolted down seats are no more.
Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. Just normal chairs. So that's not on my wish list. Hoove and I have also, I don't think you experienced this, but 2 years ago, Hoove and I also had the pleasure of, it's an old stadium. We get it. It doesn't have a ton of bells and whistles. OU's press box does have a ton of like bells and whistles, so it's not like we're sitting up in recliners or anything like that. One thing OU's press box does have, though, is all the windows on their tracks that you can open them or close them. Hoove and I walked up a couple years ago to the overflow floor, and there was a window that was just popped off the frame, just leaned up against the wall, which meant that there was no AC. You could hear the entire Texas in because Hoove and I were like the last 2 seats over. So I'm hoping to avoid that. Well, that's like my humble, like, working air conditioner. Can I get on the internet? Other than that, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'll keep my fingers crossed for y'all. Hopefully, working windows, working Wi-Fi. Which it's not going to take much to be better than what we've experienced at OU yet this year. But it was always crazy to me how at times AT&T has been the sponsor of this, and the Wi-Fi has been garbage down there. So fingers crossed that'll be better for y'all this year.
Before that, it was Southwestern Bell, who, again,
yeah,
your communications company. How can you not figure out the Wi-Fi situation?
You would think. You'd be wrong, but you would think.
Yeah. RC, don't forget was it 2 years ago or 4 years ago? We were up in the upper atmosphere of the Cotton Bowl press box, and you basically had EMTs fighting against Dallas PD, like throwing haymakers, and people were cussing at each other, and food was flying everywhere. It was a madhouse.
That was 4 years ago. That was the Caleb comeback where there was a concession worker who stepped to the front of the press box and was just screaming, "Get when Caleb was running all over the place," and we were like, I can work in a chaotic environment. That was a step too far.
Yeah. It's always when Texas has the home game. When Texas is the home team, stuff goes wild.
Well, Texas is the home team this year, so
yeah, we also don't get shoved to overflow when Texas is the home team. So thank you to Oklahoma. I think that setup probably be a little bit different. Nobody cares about our problems, though. You know what they care about? Going down to the Cotton Bowl, having a good day, getting a W, and getting some sunburns, some Fletcher's corny dogs, and some Wax Cup beers. And that's what all the Oklahoma fans will be doing. We'll be on about Friday night. If you see us, come say what's up. We're always happy to give you a hello, and we apologize for Brady's behavior. Basically, that'll be if you run into us and Brady's out about. We apologize for young Trantham's behavior. He also wanted me to pass along. He wanted me to wish a very happy birthday to Joe Siglione as well, as we are potting on Joe Siglione's birthday. So that one is for you, Mr. Trantham. That's all the time we have here. Brady's gonna hate me. Okay, we gotta go. We'll talk to you post game pod, press box, OU Texas. What more could you want? Wednesday night. Here's the drill. 7:10 availability report updates. 7:15 you have everything you need in your hands. Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. Be on our website just refreshing like a madman Aber's got it tonight and Friday. So wherever John Mateer lands, Ryan Aber will have that for you. And we will talk to you guys on Saturday. Peace.